Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to get the starter installed, rotate the engine, and find out where top dead center is approximately for the number one cylinder, so I can get this distributor positioned correctly the way it's supposed to, because as of my last episode, coming to find out, because of the confined space on the other side with the transmission dipstick and the connection for the heater core, there just wasn't a whole lot of room over there for the vacuum advance connection for the distributor. And it was just like all these things all on one side, and that couldn't have been right. And so I posted a link at the last part of the video from last installment about for a video I saw that somebody else made that's a Pontiac fan, and per his investigations and research, finding out that the connection for the vacuum is actually supposed to be on the driver's side of the car, so that's where I'm going to be having it. So let's get into this. Okay, so here we have the starter. Nothing special here. It's your standard GM unit. Knowing that I have to get the engine to rotate, I've hooked up a jumper harness here for it. One thing I want to touch on, something I've had trouble with over the years, is so you're under the car, it's a confined space, and this isn't an easy job by any stretch of the imagination. And I've always had trouble with these nuts that hold the studs in, that you fasten your connections to, and you're underneath there and you're putting your connections on, and you're putting the wrench or the socket or whatever you're using on here, and you're turning this thing, and what starts to happen is you want it snug and secure so it's going to stay together and make good contact and work and all that. But what starts to happen is this will start to turn, or this one right here, and I've always had trouble with that. So what you can do is sacrifice a wrench or go to a flea market and buy something close. And I've actually made a couple of tools, wrenches here, because this is like an 11/32 right here. So I got an old wrench and ground it down to the appropriate size so I can hold on to this while I'm actually tightening down the nut that holds the electrical connection. I got one for this size, for both sides of here. You can hold it like this, right? And I got one for this one up here, which is actually a 9/16, but I didn't have one. I had this little doodad here. I got it at a flea market one day. I don't know where it came from, but anyway, I ground that out so I can hold this. Now you can only actually hold it from this end because there's some sort of protective plastic shield here, whatever the heck that's supposed to be, molded into the solenoid part. So there you go. So moving on, get this thing in the car. I got the starter installed. Here's the cabling or the wiring coming up for it, right? And here's the jumper wire so I can get the starter to work. But that being said, there are these two screws poking out right here. They're sheet metal screws, and what those are for is to hold the gas pedal in. So I go to take these screws out, and there's only two. But I take it out and discover that originally there was four supposed to be going in there. And if you look at this, and it's hard to tell in the video, I guess, you can see this is the top plate. You can see how it's kind of curved and warped. I don't know if you can tell or not, but it is. And this is, yeah, you can tell right here, if I get that piece of fuzz off of there. Alright, you can see how it's not level. This is like the torque effect of mashing the gas pedal, you know, over the past 50-some years of the operation of the car. And it was meant to have four to hold it in. And I noticed before I even took these screws out that they were already loose, almost hand tight. And so I'm going to clean this up, drill a couple more holes, and see if I can find something similar and add two more just to put it the way it's supposed to be. And the only reason I was doing this in the first place because these points were poking out, and it's going to be right close to the starter cable stuff. So I was just going to shorten those to begin with, but you know, you discover this and you want to improve it, so that's what I'm going to do here. Okay, so I looked at this plastic piece here. This is the part that goes on the inside of the car before you put the gas pedal in, and I thought that these two were unused holes that weren't drilled out and used, but come to find out, turning over on the other side, there's actually two guide pins, I guess you'd call them, that these go into the sheet metal there. So they only intended two screws, which works, but I don't think is good enough, so I'm going to put four in. Okay, so there are four screws where there once was two. And down here, they're sticking out considerably less than they were once before. And thinking along while I'm doing this, I think I'm just gonna like take those out of there and put four threaded inserts in and use a machine screws or machine bolts to hold this thing in, because it's just like screwing into this sheet metal, and I don't know if I like it or not, so I think I'm probably eventually going to change that, but I ain't going to monkey around with that right now. I want to get moving on this distributor position thing. Okay, I got everything hooked up. Here's the firing order, and I'm looking for the rotor to point towards like the A post or something like that when the compression stroke comes up on the number one cylinder. Okay, I made a couple of revolutions and an adjustment on the distributor, and I think I found the number one. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see how this is oriented. So here's the book, and you can see, man, this thing's falling apart with age, just like me. So you can see the number one pointed toward the left rear of the engine. So I'm going to cover the number one cylinder with my finger. You'll be able to hear the huff and the squeak of the air blowing past it when that thing comes around. Right there, you hear that last huff. So that's pretty close. That's kind of past the compression stroke right there. I can feel it coming just before that. So that's where it's got to be. The only way we'll know for sure is when we got the engine and all the electrics together and we go to start it up. See if I got this right or not. Okay then, so I hope I've found number one cylinder, and from this point moving forward it's just a matter of putting all the spark plug wires back on, hooking up all the electrics, putting back the pulleys back on the front of the engine, and plugging up all the fluid line and the coolant lines, all that stuff, everything necessary to run the engine. And then once that's done, I got to put an exhaust system on it because that's not there either. So it's going to be a while before I get back to you. If you've made it this far, thanks for sticking around and watching. Please like and subscribe and share. And be cool.